right, YouTube, coming to you out of Detroit, Detroit's HPTV. And as you can see from the topic, it's serious because, well, we're going to get off into it. But first, let me tell you this. Like, I'm born and raised in Detroit, and I'm 56 years old. But I remember being 18 in the city of Detroit, in the streets, beefing in the streets, running in the streets. And I remember my mother went through my room one time, and my mother found a gun. And my mother told me that if I had to carry a gun, that I couldn't live at her house because I had siblings. And at 18, I halfway understood where she was coming from. You know what I mean? But at 18 and being involved in the type of things I was involved in, my understanding wasn't there. I wasn't mature enough. And I understand the mentality of a lot of these young people, and I can identify with them. I have sometimes on my podcast, I had trolls that's not from Detroit. You know what I mean? They'll get in the comments and they'll talk real reckless to me in the comments. You know what I mean? I guess they see the gray or whatever. You know what I mean? But I'm 56 years old and I done been down that road. I done been all the way down that road. You know what I mean? And I don't respond back to them because I know that if you're a real like street person or whatever, you're not spending time trolling and commenting on some old guy's post. You know what I mean? So you're just talking. But we live in a society now where you just can't talk and be out and be about and not understand that there's always something going down. And I'm speaking to the parents in this podcast that if you don't know what's going on in your child's life, as a parent, I'm talking about your teenagers and the young people, it can cost you your life. It can really cost you your life. Now I'm gonna jump into this video and then I'm gonna do some commentary on it. This is for fair use commentary purposes. Check this out, what happened.
That graduation day tragedy in Richmond, Virginia, gunmen opening fire just moments after a high school ceremony held on the campus of Virginia Commonwealth University. 2 people were killed, including an 18-year-old who had just received his diploma. At least 5 others were hurt. NBC's Aaron Gilchrist knows the area well. He's a VCU graduate, also went to high school there in Richmond as well. Aaron, good morning to you.
Craig, good morning to you. You're right. The graduation ceremony was just ending here. As you said, I graduated from Richmond Public Schools. I was inside this building for my sister's graduation 25 years ago, so I can tell you from experience there were hundreds of people standing outside this building yesterday celebrating, hugging, taking photos when those gunshots rang out. The police were very close by. They were able to stop the suspected shooter very quickly. He is now facing second-degree murder charges. What started out as a day of celebration quickly turning to tragedy.
We have an active shooter at graduation.
Gunfire erupting on the campus of Virginia Commonwealth University, just moments after students from Richmond's Huguenot High School held their graduation. The shooting leaving 2 dead. 18-year-old Sean Jackson just graduated, and his father, 36-year-old Renzo Smith. Investigators say 5 others ranging in age from 14 to 58 were...
Now I'm gonna stop right here. When I was coming up, and I know like a lot of young people, they'll say, you know, don't talk about the old days or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about the old days or back in the day in that type of terminology or understanding. But I will say that when we was beefing, if you was with your mother or kids, you could get a pass. Even if we seen you or knew your location, we really wasn't going to come at you if we seen you with your mother. You know what I mean? But now, this is a different era. And the young people now, they're not giving your mother a pass. You're not giving your siblings a pass. You're not giving your grandparents a pass. Or none of that when you're in the streets. And a lot of these young people, they don't care whether they live or die. You know what I mean? When they knee deep in the street. You know what I mean? I think about what they actually going through with losing their peers, losing their partners, the people that they run through. And after you go through that so many times, you become desensitized. And whether you live or die doesn't matter. What matters is winning the beef. You know what I mean? Catching up with your ops. That becomes primary when you young like that and you in the streets and you suffering with PTSD from watching your peers get smoked and going to funerals and all that. You become desensitized. And then at that level, all that matters is catching your ops slipping. But your op is slipping at a graduation. Your op is slipping at a funeral. Your op is slipping at a picnic. Your op is slipping around his family. And they're opening up. So we can't ignore exactly what we see in these streets and with these young people. I know a lot of people in Detroit, like women, you know, their sons be in the street, he make a lot of money, and, you know, he gets a lot of money. He wants to buy his mama a Gucci purse, or he wants to buy his mama a Louis Vuitton purse, or he wants to buy his mama a car. You know what I mean? He done been grinding up on a bag, and now he want to bless his family, and they accept it from him, knowing what he's doing. You know what I mean? Another thing, like when I was coming up, my mother wouldn't accept gifts from me. You know what I mean? When I was out there in the street selling drugs and doing my thing, you know, she wouldn't accept it because she didn't approve. You know what I mean? And even though I was 18 and young, it didn't really matter to me. But you got to magnify what was going on back then times 10. And if you a parent and you know that your child is slanging drugs, beefing, smoking their ops, and all these type of things, and your child is allowed to do that and still be around the family, be at family events, you put your whole family and your own life at risk. And we don't understand that, and it'd be sad and it'd be a tragedy because somebody's gonna say, you know, why you smoke his mama? Or why you smoke his daddy? Or why you smoke his brother? That's what time it is now. Now, the father, in this case, you know, he had been to the military, wanted to go see his son graduating and all of that. But his son was heavy in the streets. His son was making videos, dissing the ops. His son was living a life that was ultimately going to end up in tragedy no matter what. He was going to end up in prison or on a slab. And as a father myself, it's unfathomable that my children's lifestyle can be so dangerous that it makes my life in danger or my other children's life in danger. And you got to analyze that. As a parent, you see that your child is self-destructing. You see that your child is a very dangerous individual. You see your child in videos holding Drago and Uzis and guns and talking about smoking somebody. You know what I mean? What do? I mean, a guy got in one of my posts, and the guy said, I was talking about the black community, and he said, there is no black community. We don't have a community. You know what I mean? We don't have neighbors anymore. We just have hoods. Because the children are totally out of control. And this is not the first instance of this happening. This has been happening consistently over the last several years, maybe even the last decade and a half, to where the streets have become so off the chain that you can't go to funerals, you can't go to weddings because of certain individuals' behavior and certain consequences that come with even associating with certain individuals. The community has gotten that bad. Or we're not going to say community, we're going to say the hood, because we don't have communities and we don't have neighborhoods anymore. And it's a sad affair. But I ask myself, as a father, I see my son on YouTube or Instagram, and my son is talking about how he gonna smoke somebody, and he did smoke somebody, and you know what I mean? How he gonna spin on somebody, you know what I mean? And I love him as a son, but realistically, he can't get in my car. He can't get in my car if he's living that lifestyle. He can't socialize with the rest of my children is he living that lifestyle. And like I said, I've seen a lot of women, you know, they see their sons in the street and they know what their son's doing, but they accept the gifts, you know what I mean? You know, they want purses and they want, I don't even know if they want it, but why accept it? You know what I'm saying? And then I've seen them when their son is wrapped up in that casket and they cry. And, you know, I want justice. Have you ever thought that you got justice? You know, your son lived in the street. Your son hurt other people and other families. And now you're crying. I think about Mama Duck, FBG Duck mother. She really is a woman that is out of touch with what really happened with her child and what really goes on in the street. You know, your child is making music about smoking his ops and, you know what I mean, and dissing the dead. And when it catch up to him, you heartbroken. But I wonder, did you ever tell your kid or try to get your kid to the point to where they understood that that lifestyle was going to lead there? You know, one thing about my parents, they told me, yeah, you keep going the way you're going, it's either dead or in jail. You know what I mean? There's no other avenue that you're going to get to. But it's sad. But I want the parents to think about it. When you see your child knee deep in the streets, making all that money, do you reap the benefits and enjoy the benefits of the ill-gotten gain? Do you accept the gifts and accept the money? Because if you do, you got to accept that casket and you got to be ready to go and visit them in that prison cell. And you shouldn't complain about it if you're not trying to stop it. Let's finish looking at this.
Were also shot, one of them suffering life-threatening injuries.
We have multiple reports of shootings in Monroe Park.
Several others were hurt as they fled the gunfire. including a 9-year-old girl who's expected to be okay after being hit by a car.
We had hundreds of people in Monroe Park, so people scattered. It was very chaotic at the scene.
In custody this morning, a 19-year-old suspect whose identity has not been released yet. Police say they recovered 4 handguns after a school security officer managed to detain the suspected shooter on the VCU campus. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin writing, "As we struggle to fully comprehend this tragedy, our hearts break for those whose lives were lost. Richmond's mayor outraged his community is the latest target of senseless gun violence."
This is tragic, but also traumatic, because this is their graduation day. Is nothing sacred any longer? Is nothing sacred any longer?
I want to stop on that point. He asked, is anything sacred anymore? And the answer to that is emphatically no. No. So act like you know. The cognitive dissonance that comes with turning away from what you see is costing people their lives. It's costing people their lives. We all got family members that you don't want in your car because you know what they're doing in the street. You know what I mean? We all got that cousin that you know you don't want to go to the store with. You know you don't want to stop at the red light with him in the front seat of your car. You know what I mean? But what do you do when it's your child?
Now, police believe the suspect they have in custody was the only person involved in the shooting here. Craig, we know that he will be in court later on this morning for his first arraignment. Back to you.
Aaron Gilchrist, voice there in Richmond. Aaron, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Yeah, it's sad, but it needs to be contemplated because it's so much you see in social media. I can look at like a Facebook timeline, and you see grown people, they just saying all kind of slick this, they saying all kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Not knowing when they're going to bump into a person or when they're going to actually meet up with a person or when a person going to see them and they don't see them. You know what I mean? The internet has made life far more dangerous than it ever was. I had a person get in my comments. He had to be a young person because he couldn't understand why Willie D was saying he didn't want to be called nigger, a grandfather. Willie D's a grandfather. I couldn't imagine when I was young somebody addressing my grandfather as, that's my nigger. But also, I couldn't imagine my grandma with a OnlyFans. I couldn't imagine my grandma twerking either. You understand what I'm saying? So these are different times that we live in. And reflect on these things because these things are not happening in a vacuum. It's a sign of the times. So adapt to them because you can't ignore it. Signing out of Detroit, keep your head on the swivel. For real, stay vigilant.